Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. South Korea has reached a deal with the United States to release hundreds of workers detained during a massive immigration raid on a Hyundai facility in Georgia. They will depart on a charter flight as early as Wednesday. The South Korean government and the ruling party have agreed to dismantle the country's prosecution service and strip the finance ministry of its power to prepare budgets. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has announced that he will resign. This follows growing calls from within his party to take responsibility for his historic defeat in July's parliamentary election. We begin this morning with updates on the immigration raid on a South Korean factory in the U.S. state of Georgia. South Korea has concluded talks with the United States for the release of more than 300 Korean workers detained last week. A presidential official says a charter flight will be sent to bring them home once U.S. administrative procedures are complete. Our Park Hyubin starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Sunday local time that he would look into the immigration raid on a Hyundai plant in Georgia, while emphasizing that ties with South Korea are great.
We have a great relationship with South Korea, really good relationship.
Trump was speaking after reports that the mass detention of South Korean workers by U.S. immigration authorities is entering a resolution phase. According to the presidential office on Sunday, negotiations for the release of more than 300 detained South Korean workers have been concluded. But it added that U.S. administrative procedures remain in place.
Negotiations for the release of our detained workers have been concluded. Only administrative procedures remain, and once those are finalized, a chartered flight will depart to bring our people home.
The earliest option under review is for the workers to return on a chartered flight this Wednesday, U.S. time. To finalize the process, Foreign Minister Cho Hyun is leaving for the U.S. on Monday. He is expected to meet U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio to discuss the pending procedures as well as preventive measures to avoid a similar situation occurring. The South Korean government also pledged to establish fundamental safeguards, such as creating new visa categories for short-term dispatches and consultation with Washington. Officials stressed that resolving visa issues is essential, especially as South Korea has promised active investment in the U.S. during trade negotiations.
Even if this case is resolved quickly, the government and ruling party will do our utmost to establish fundamental measures to ensure that similar incidents do not recur.
Meanwhile, Washington has warned of tougher enforcement of immigration rules. Tom Homan, the White House border security chief under the Trump administration, told CNN that more large-scale raids and arrests should be expected at work sites, including those run by foreign companies like Hyundai and LG Energy Solution. Last Friday, U.S. immigration authorities said a total of 475 individuals, including around 300 Koreans, were arrested in the ICE raid. U.S. officials said they were engaged in unauthorized work, with some on temporary or tourist visas that prohibit employment. The South Korean workers are currently being held at the ICE detention center in Folkestone, Georgia. The facility, which has a maximum capacity of 1,100, has long faced criticism for overcrowding, sanitation, and safety issues. Park Hyubin, Arirang News.
So last week's raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia was one of the largest immigration raids in recent U.S. history. For more on this, we're joined by Professor Choi Hyun-jin, professor at the Department of Political Science at Kyunghee University. Professor Choi, thanks for joining us this morning.
Morning, thank you for having me.
So U.S. officials say this was a months-long federal immigration operation and that they've been collecting documents and developing evidence for months. What's really behind this raid?
I think this case has both legal and political sides. Officially, U.S. authorities have announced that some of the Korean engineers worked at their LG battery and also Hyundai plant with a proper visa. For example, some entered the United States with the ESTA or short-term business visa like B1. but worked on construction sites, which is not allowed under the current U.S. immigration law. However, in the past, U.S. officials have often tolerated this kind of a practice, especially during early stage of the huge investment. So the timing and the scale of this raid feels very unusual. And this happened in Georgia, which is one of the key swing states in American domestic politics. And also the second term of Donald Trump has strongly focused on the enforcement of the illegal immigration. So this raid seems to send a clear political message. So even big foreign investors must follow every American immigration law, and each part of the American first policy under the new Trump administration. So of course, some opposition lawmakers in South Korea argue that this might be some retaliation measure for the recent special prosecutor's investigation of the Osan Air Base, which is jointly operated by South Korean and American forces, but we should be cautious because there is no clear evidence that links these two different events, and premature speculation could harm our diplomacy. So what is clear is now over 300 Korean engineers and workers are detained, some even in chains, and the video was made public, and this created great shock in Korea. And Korean government responded very quickly, and they successfully negotiated with the American government to release our workers as soon as possible. But going forward, both governments must work together to improve and prepare the visa system for our huge investment project.
Right. And industry insiders in Korea say that because of the nature of construction work, companies have often relied on the ESTA visa waiver system or on short-term visas like the B1, like you just mentioned. The latest rate is now expected to, sort of change this, right?
Yes, so this case really shows that the limits of how foreign companies operate in the United States, especially in big industrial projects. So in this kind of project, companies often need to send very skilled workers and engineers to the United States for short-term jobs, like setting up equipment or stabilizing production lines. But here is the problem. The proper work visa, like H-1B or H-2B, they take 2 or 3 months to process, and also they are very limited in number. For this region, for Korean companies investing billions of dollars in the United States, obtaining H-1 visa is not really realistic. So many of them used these short-term options like ESTA or business visa in the past. So until now, this practice has often been tolerated by American authorities, but under President Trump's second term, U.S. immigration is becoming much stricter. So I think this is more a political issue because there is a growing America first mood, and also any foreign worker, even temporarily, can be seen as taking a job from America. So unless there is a clear visa pathway for this skilled worker, we may see some more disruptions in the near future.
Right, and the latest raid was a shock to many because South Korea is considered a key U.S. ally, and it actually comes less than 2 weeks after President Lee Jae-myung held a summit with Donald Trump in Washington, D.C., and after Korean companies, including Hyundai, actually agreed to invest tens of billions of dollars in the United States. How do you think the latest immigration raid will impact bilateral relations?
That's true. The timing of this immigration raid is very unusual and also very sensitive. It happened just a few days after President Lee Jae-myung met with Donald Trump in Washington, D.C., and also not long after Korean government announced a new round of huge investment in the United States. And that's why many Korean people are confused and even upset to see this kind of event. And yes, the United States has a right to enforce the law, but when over 300 Korean workers are suddenly detained, even in chains, and without any notice or prior consultation with the Korean government, that crossed the line, and it's not what we can expect from a trustworthy ally like the United States. And this sends a troubling message to Korean business. So even if you invest billions of dollars in the United States and create American jobs, your workers may still be treated rather unfairly. So looking ahead, I don't think this incident will destroy the Korea-U.S. Diplomatic relation or alliance, but we have to acknowledge that this has created a crack in mutual trust. So to fix this problem, both governments need to work seriously, especially about a realistic and also legal visa system between the two countries.
Right, absolutely. A lot of issues still left to resolve right there. All right, Professor Choi, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
On the local front, at a high-level meeting between the ruling party, government, and presidential office, a government reorganization plan was finalized, which includes the dismantling of the prosecutor's office. They aim to pass it at the National Assembly's plenary session this month. Our political correspondent Shin-Young reports.
The centerpiece of the Lee Jae-myung administration's government reorganization plan is prosecution reform. The plan was announced Sunday following a high-level meeting between the ruling Democratic Party, government, and presidential office. Under the plan, the prosecutor's office will be dismantled and replaced by two new agencies, one under the Justice Ministry handling indictments and another under the Interior Ministry handling investigations.
Prosecution reform is one of the president's key pledges. There have been ongoing concerns that the prosecution has abused its unchecked power and undermined fairness, with selective investigations and arbitrary indictments deepening public distrust.
The changes will take effect 1 year after the plan is approved by the National Assembly and announced to the public, with a task force under the Prime Minister's office set up to work out the details of prosecution reform. Reorganization will also affect the Finance Ministry, which will continue handling taxation, economic policy, and treasury matters, but budget planning will be transferred to a new agency under the Prime Minister's supervision. The Environment Ministry will be expanded to take over energy policy responsibilities that are currently handled by the Industry Ministry. A new Deputy Prime Minister for Science and Technology will be created to oversee AI, and the Deputy Prime Minister for Social Affairs position held by the Education Minister will be abolished.
This government reorganization is a first step to carry out key public priorities and support the new administration's goals. It seeks to streamline ministry functions and prepare for complex challenges such as the climate crisis and the AI transformation.
Meanwhile, during Sunday's high-level meeting, measures on labor safety and natural disasters were also discussed. The DP called for more support for small businesses and penalties for companies that have a poor record when it comes to accidents.
Workplaces with repeated accidents should face strict penalties, while those that prevent accidents should be rewarded.
The government said it'll strengthen support for vulnerable workers while enforcing effective sanctions. For natural disasters, they plan to work on preventive measures with extra funding. Shin-Young, Arirang News.
Over in Japan, the country's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba announced his resignation on Sunday, less than a year after taking office. The announcement comes amid mounting pressure from within its own Liberal Democratic Party, after the party suffered major defeat in July's upper house election. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has announced his resignation less than a year after taking office.
I have decided to resign as the Liberal Democratic Party president.
Ishiba made the announcement at a Sunday evening news conference, bowing to mounting pressure from within his own Liberal Democratic Party. The ruling party has been in turmoil since suffering a major defeat in July's upper house election. Ishiba had resisted calls to step down, insisting he could hold the government together. He pointed to progress in tariff talks with the United States, measures to stabilize rice prices, and a summit with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung as signs of recovery. However, his approval ratings never fully recovered, and discontent only grew louder from within the LDP. Party lawmakers and regional leaders were set to vote Monday on whether to hold an early leadership election. With nearly half already backing the move, Ishiba decided to step aside rather than face a split vote. His resignation triggers the race to choose the next LDP president, a post that almost always means taking on the role of prime minister. Early polls show two frontrunners, Sanei Taikaichi, a staunch conservative, and Shinjiro Koizumi, the agriculture minister and son of former Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi. During Ishiba's time as prime minister, his government struggled with surging prices, falling real wages, and a rice market crisis that critics say exposed deep weakness within his cabinet. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
8 members of OPEC Plus, including Russia, on Sunday agreed to raise oil production output by 137,000 barrels per day starting next month. Energy ministers from Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Kazakhstan, Algeria, and Oman reached a decision during a virtual meeting, reaffirming their commitment to stabilizing the market based on sound oil market conditions and a stable global economic outlook. The decision marks the 7th consecutive month of output hikes since the group shifted to a production increase in April. The countries had previously implemented voluntary production cuts in 2023 outside the OPEC Plus framework to counter price declines fueled by weak Chinese demand and the global push for electric vehicles. The recent animated movie, K-pop Demon Hunters, has been sweeping the hearts of many viewers. But how can those with visual impairments also enjoy the movie? Our An Sung-jin tells us how the efforts of transitioning non-verbal elements of content to verbal components can help.
각과 돋보 차림의 진우가 굳은 얼굴로 서 있다. 호랑이가 진우의 팔에 얼굴을 비빈다.
This is a scene from the renowned Netflix film K-pop Demon Hunters. The Korean Community Media Foundation provided a screening of this popular movie with attached audio descriptions.
One of our major goals is to create no discrimination between disabled and non-disabled audiences in media, so we work on screening accessible movies.
For most of us, watching a movie means sitting back and soaking in the visuals. But we might be taking this for granted. Veteran Seo Soo-yeon redefines how stories are told and experienced. She started the Korea Content Accessibility Research Center, and for 23 years, she's been working on expressing nonverbal elements of content into spoken aspects.
To be honest, this was all very unfamiliar to me because no one had done it before. I had never thought that people with visual impairments couldn't watch TV. But I realized there are movements, actions, and nuances that they miss entirely.
Her work involves adding descriptions of subtle expressions and action sequences in between the spoken lines, creating a fuller cinematic experience for the visually impaired.
시점을 빈 그릇에서 가게 사장에게로 옮겨간다. 사장을 꽂으며 얼굴 끼우고 있다.
For Seo, effective audio descriptions aren't about matching visuals word for word, but rather producing context, clarity, and flow. But what she says what's often more important, yet neglected, is the language used that creates further division.
There shouldn't be hard lines drawn between people with and without disabilities, because anyone can become visually impaired. So we often frame accessibility as something only for people with disabilities, but it really starts with understanding others.
The push for accessible content is gaining ground, but there's still a long way to go. With efforts from people like Seo, moments that can be lost in darkness can enhance a powerful scene for everyone. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Russia has launched its largest aerial assault on Ukraine, hitting the main government building in Kyiv for the first time. On Sunday, Russia launched over 800 drones and 13 missiles, targeting Kyiv and several other regions across Ukraine. Although Ukraine intercepted most of the incoming attacks, the strikes resulted in the deaths of at least 3 people in Kyiv, including a mother and her infant. The office of Ukraine's Cabinet of Ministers also sustained damage. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy condemned the assault as a ruthless, deliberate crime. He said the drone and missile barrage caused widespread damage throughout the north, south, and east of the country, including the cities of Zaporizhia and Odessa. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump announced that the U.S. is prepared to implement a second stage of sanctions against Russia, particularly targeting buyers of Russian oil and gas. Moving over to Africa, Boko Haram militants killed more than 60 people, including civilians and soldiers in northeastern Nigeria over the weekend. Authorities confirmed on Saturday that at least 63 people were killed by the jihadist group's attack on the village of Darul Jamal in Borno State. The region had recently been repopulated by residents from a camp for internally displaced persons. Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum, visiting the attacked community late Saturday night, said this community was resettled some months ago and they went about their normal business. Militants destroyed more than 20 houses and 10 buses during the raid. While the Nigerian Air Force said it killed 30 militants in strikes in response, Governor Zulum said the numerical strength was not enough to contain the situation and pledged to bolster security. In Thailand, Anutin Charnvirakul officially became the country's prime minister on Sunday, following royal endorsement by King Maha Vajiralongkorn. After securing 311 parliamentary votes on Friday, Anutin pledged to turn the country back into the land of smiles. He has also agreed to dissolve parliament and call an election within 4 months. Anutin previously served as Deputy Prime Minister, Interior Minister, and Health Minister, and is best known for his role in decriminalizing cannabis in 2022. He is Thailand's 3rd Prime Minister in just 2 years, following the removal of Paetongtarn Shinawatra by court order last month for ethics violations related to a leaked phone call with Cambodia's former leader. In the Vatican, a teenage boy who died of leukemia in 2006, aged 15, has become the first millennial saint of the Catholic Church as Pope Leo XIV canonized the tech prodigy during a mass in St. Peter's Square on Sunday. Some 70,000 to 80,000 people attended the ceremony. Carlo Acutis, a British-born Italian boy with the nickname God's Influencer, became renowned for creating a multilingual website that cataloged Eucharistic miracles recognized by the Church, merging deep faith with digital innovation. An Italian mountaineering enthusiast who served the poor and sick and died in 1925 was also canonized in the Pontiff's first sainthood event.
An early autumn breeze in the mornings and evenings is being welcomed by many of us, but the daytime heat will still linger across much of the country. But the main event today is rain in the southern regions with heavy downpours. Rain that's falling in Jeju this morning will spread to Jeollado, then to the Gyeongsangdo provinces, lasting through tomorrow night. Meanwhile, the southern coast in Jeju will see showers continuing into Wednesday. And until then, Jeju Island and Namdo provinces might get up to 100 millimeters of downpours, while the southern coast of Gyeongsang-Namdo province could get up to 80 millimeters. Meanwhile, the central regions will stay mostly cloudy today with a high of 29 degrees here in the capital. Daegu, Gwangju will also get up to 29 degrees, but Jeju Island still very warm at 32 degrees. Afternoon heat will still hovers above 30 degrees Celsius this week in most parts, while lows will stay in the low 20s. So please dress accordingly and take care.
Now that's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.